This was the first short story I published on my blog. I have translated it into English myself. It's not my native language, but I hope it's alright. Hashi, by Thomas Lindroth. Hashi was bridge country. Most were typically Asian, red with high arches. My girlfriend and I loved walking in the area. There wasn't a single bridge where we hadn't stood taking selfies together. We traveled a lot in those days, especially in the so-called Sinosphere in East Asia. I don't know what it was about that part of the world, but we had both grown up with manga, and stories about samurai and wuxia. There were other reasons as well. One could simply be that it was so different from our respective home countries. I came from Sweden and she from Italy, which meant that she had a crazy temper. I think that temper of hers was what drove us apart in the end. I do like crazy women, which is probably my mum's fault, but there's a limit to how much you can take. She went home, and I stayed in Hashi. I thought it would be nice, but unfortunately I quickly got bored without her. It's probably man's destiny to play with fire. Soon after she left it started to rain. It got really cold as well, a real winter. I snuggled up on the floor on a comfortable futon, and focused on learning to read kanji. It was unsatisfying to be alone, but I endured. The country was beautiful in winter as well. That was a good thing, because all roads in and out had snowed up, and I had to stay. I was rather sensitive to the cold. Otherwise I might have gone on a hike. I met several tourists who were going to do exactly that. We had a lot of fun together. There was one person in particular I got attached to. Her name was Kanako, and she was a typical, cute Japanese girl. I thought it'd be nice to have a relationship with her. Japanese people are calm. Unfortunately, she thought I was too much of a wuss. She was rather fit and outdoorsy, and I was, well, It didn't stop us from sharing a futon several times. She promised to come and see me again, when she and her friend Kitty got back from the mountains. Apparently she'd been well satisfied, unlike my raging Italiana. While I was waiting for Kanako, I decided to man up a bit outdoors. I went to the store and bought a proper jacket, and some other equipment for a hike. I felt a bit like Shigeru Miyamoto must have felt when he was exploring his caves. It was that was the basis for Zelda. You see what an extreme nerd I was who knew that. No one I knew could have thought I would survive more than a day in the wild. It's true that I suffered the first few nights. I thought I would lose some toes to frostbite. I survived nonetheless. Once I got going, it was wonderful to be out on my own. Noon could reach me here, no tender mothers, no sexy female friends, no cute little nieces and nephews. It wasn't really that fun, to be completely honest. I'll tell you everything. It's not like anyone will read this, since hard disks are perishable. I really missed the women in my life, and I just wanted to fly home to Sweden. Perhaps I was a romantic after all, whatever my raging Italiana said. I would show her. I would rent the whole Colosseum and cover it with rose petals, and she would cry of joy. We would eat a really good pasta, and she'd tell me that she was pregnant with another man. Then I would kill her, and wear her skin till I got shot. It would be awesome. Although it would turn out I would get enough adventure as it was. For long hours I walked aimlessly in the mountains, but then one day I found something. It was Kanako's scarf. I was convinced it was hers, even though it was the same as hundreds of other women's. I swore that I would rescue my beautiful Zelda from the evil Ganon, or whoever it was. I just had to find his dungeon. It had to be in a cave somewhere in the mountains. Everything was so easy in games. I think that Link must believe in some god. Everything was set up for him to find, and he and the princess were the center of the universe. Though unlike Link, I was more than 7 years old, whatever my raging Italiana said. I could think, and my brilliant powers of deduction showed me right. Sherlock Holmes would have been proud. Snow lay deep on the roofs, and only I was awake. I searched and searched as if possessed. I shouted her fair name over and over again, until I called down the snow from the mountain tops. It wasn't a good strategy, I admitted to myself where I lay under the snow. At least there was no wind here, although it was weighed up by the lack of oxygen. My phenomenal brain could have taken some damage, if someone hadn't dug me out right then. I thanked my benefactor, a strikingly beautiful woman that I initially took for Kanako, my princess. I don't know if it was that all Japanese people look the same, but it wasn't her. A more in-depth analysis showed that it was her friend Kitty, her personally adopted sister. Kitty smiled at me, in that way girls do when they think you're cute and also a bit stupid. I have a lot of experience of that, and it's the only way for me to get laid. I can usually make the feeling last quite long. Kitty was sadly alone here. She told me that Kanako had been kidnapped. When I asked, she said that it was Hachiman. Hold on. Was she saying that the Japanese war god just turned up and carried away our mutual friend? Yes, she was, but I couldn't believe such madness. It had to be Ganon. She didn't know who that was. It was a pity, because she was otherwise very attractive. I said that I didn't want to sleep with her anymore, and she thanked me heartily. From the top of the hill, we could see almost the whole valley. It was small, but also too big. We'd never find Kanako if we searched randomly, not even with a pink helicopter. Kitty didn't know where he might have taken her, but she knew someone who might know. There was a temple to the god nearby. I thought it sounded suspect. It was probably the priest there who had disguised himself as the god, in order to capture women. Why hadn't I thought of that? Our Christian god was actually known for liking virgins. Kitty didn't think that was funny. She was actually a Christian, even though there weren't many in Japan. We started walking towards the temple in silence. It had gotten windy again, and we were terribly cold. Just as Kitty had said, the temple stood there like some secret mushroom, deep in the dense forest. I loved typically Japanese houses, with their enormous roofs and protruding eaves. It was so cute. The yard was less snowy. Instead there lay large, black stone slabs here and there, like sleeping dragons. It was a magical place. Even Kitty could feel it, even though it was a pagan faith. I was surprised that she, being Christian, didn't want to burn the shit down and build a church. It's become the world's largest religion, precisely because they never tolerated other religions. The priest came out and talked to us. He greeted us with a light bow. He said his name was Makoto. We started explaining, but he already knew why we were there. We stepped into the temple. It was a single large room, split in 2 parts. There was an inner square space, with a dark walkway around it. In the middle stood a low table. Kitty and I stared in wonder. On the table lay Kanako, wearing a traditional fundashi. She appeared to be sleeping. Kitty started crying and ran to her. She said things in Japanese that I didn't understand. I stayed where I was, unsure if I should come closer and hug her. It turned out that our friend wasn't who we thought. She had been summoned here to serve as an avatar for the great Hachiman. She apologized to Kitty, but she had to keep it a secret even to her best friend. She showed us a samurai armor that stood next to the table. It was that one that Kitty had seen. She could control it with her mind alone, and it was it that had come and spirited her away. Tonight she'd wear it herself. She would make Japan a great power again. I and Kitty wished her good luck, and hurried off before the war started. I had been thinking of going to Italy and win back my girl, but it turned out that Kitty invited me to her futon after all.